Learn to cook gluten-free. Do you have celiac guests? Don't know how to cook gluten-free? Do you need to learn how to cook gluten-free? We will teach you how to cook gluten-free. It is not more difficult than traditional cooking. Just follow these guidelines. At first it can be distressing, but we assure you that after several days of cooking, everything adapts to your needs, and without the need to think, you will act naturally to cook your recipes as if nothing had happened. Cleaning all surfaces must be clean to ensure that food does not become contaminated, but this happens even in the best kitchens of large restaurants. At the moment, do we do something different? Well, no. Thoroughly clean the countertop ingredients when you prepare a recipe. You should pay attention to the ingredients to discard or change those that contain gluten to similar ones, so read the ingredients. Many already include the gluten-free stamp by default. Gluten-free flour recipes that include flour, and you have to change them for some gluten-free flour, chickpea, cornmeal, behave differently from conventional flours, so you should pay close attention to the recommended amounts of each recipe. You will see that it is also difficult for these flours to compact more. This is due to the lack of a fundamental piece that is gluten itself, and that is missing from these ingredients, but you will get used to these new textures. You can find different types of flours for each type of recipe. Make sure you have chosen the correct type of flour. Just keep in mind that the amounts of gluten-free flours are different than the amounts in the same recipe with gluten-free flours. Fried, we usually reuse the frying oil. You simply have to make sure that no product that could contaminate it with gluten has been fried in the same oil. There are many restaurants that, when asked, assure you, for example, that in the oil for the fried potatoes they only fry potatoes and they make them themselves, so you can rest easy. Oil, vegetable fats and shortening are gluten-free and can be used without fear. These other recommendations serve both gluten-free and gluten-free cooking. Fry all foods as little as possible, they should only be golden. After frying, let the kitchen paper absorb as much oil as possible. The foods that you can fry without problems are meat, bread it in gluten-free breadcrumbs, fish and shellfish, vegetables and potatoes prepared as you prefer, as long as they are gluten-free. Gluten-free cookies and desserts. For frozen fries, check the bag for the gluten-free seal or in the ingredients. Be very careful with the breaded meats. The bread that is usually used is normal, so they contain gluten. Gluten-free pastry gluten is also responsible for the fact that the cakes remain firm and fluffy, but if you follow these tips, you will achieve a very similar result. There are different types of flour and there are specific ones for pastries. Use only the type of flour and the amounts that appear in the gluten-free recipe. When working with gluten-free doughs, more liquid is needed than with conventional doughs. Follow the precise amounts of the recipes. Keep in mind that the ingredients must be at room temperature, except the short crust pastry, and you must sift all the ingredients, flour, baking powder, etc. Gluten-free dough will stick more to your fingers and cookware. We recommend that you cover the molds with baking paper and sprinkle flour on your hands before working with the dough. In the case of short crust pastry, it is very practical to roll it between 2 layers of baking paper. Convection ovens are very useful for making cookies, even on multiple levels, but they are not the best for cooking gluten-free bread. In fact, yeast dough dries out faster in convection ovens. Preheat the oven so that it reaches the desired temperature. Try not to open the oven for the first 15 to 20 minutes of cooking. Baker, if you don't have it, it's one of the best investments you can make. It's really easy to prepare. You put all the ingredients and you find the bread directly about to eat, with that smell, with that aroma. Always add the liquid ingredients to the container first. Measure ingredients accurately using an electronic kitchen scale. Add the yeast into the mixture last and never mix it with salt. Once the bread is ready, immediately remove it from the pan and allow it to cool on a wire rack. Use room temperature ingredients if you are cooking the bread directly. If you are using a timer to bake the bread overnight, the ingredients should be cold to prevent the yeast from fermenting too soon. There are bread makers that the part that makes the mixture remains inside the bread when you take it out. Don't miss it. We say it from experience, and hash 129,318, and ZWJ, and hash 9,794, and hash 65,039, and hash 129,335, and ZWJ, and hash 9,794, and hash 65,039. You can keep the bread that you have left in a bag. It can last just as well for 2 or 3 days. Gluten-free bread, pizzas and cakes keep for days if you keep them in the fridge. Freeze everything in plastic bags once it has cooled. It's best to freeze the sliced plan, so you can get as many slices as you need later. If you have to defrost whole loaves, it is best to leave them at room temperature or put them in the oven at 200 degrees Celsius for a couple of minutes. This way you always have fresh gluten-free bread at home. Short crust pastry cookies will keep longer in a metal box. For cakes and pastries, it is best to use special containers. Enjoy. An article by Rafael Martins Soto, its CEO, Artificial Intelligence at bio-pharma.es. The information presented in this article is in no way a substitute for the advice of a physician. Any mention in this article of a product does not represent the endorsement of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, for that product.